Hey, what's up, Rob? How you been, man?
Hey man, how are you? Happy New Year, I guess. This is our first live after the
Yeah,
holidays, I guess, right? It
yeah. How were your holidays? Were they good?
was good. Yeah, we had a good time.
Nice.
He was so needed. Although you know how it is. You end up working through the holidays because
Oh
that's
yeah,
when customers have free time, so they start texting you in the
right.
middle of
Exactly.
something.
That's when they're sitting around thinking, "Huh, what house should I be looking at today?" And
That is
you know,
exactly right.
texting over addresses, and
Right.
so man, I've been making a lot of phone calls. That's my job is
That's our
calling,
job,
yeah, calling people just nonstop every day
right?
and having conversations. And one conversation that I've been repeatedly having with people, and they completely seem like they're getting misinformation on what interest rates are and how they're trending.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems to be a pretty tough thing to actually get right for any loan officer or anybody in mortgages. And the reason for that is the rates change every day, right?
Right.
So when you're having a conversation about getting somebody pre-approved, you're talking and thinking about it through the lens of the rates of that day.
Yeah.
And most loan officers don't have the time nor knowledge to think about to try to extrapolate and think 2 maybe 3 months in advance, especially in economic environments like the one we're in right now, where it's so volatile, right? So what are you hearing?
One guy told me that he thought interest rates were up to like 9%. I was like, oh no,
Well,
no,
definitely not. Definitely
that's not
not.
right.
Oh, God save us. God save us if we get to that
Yeah.
point. I mean, that's going to be rough.
I mean,
No, I mean, I check him. I check them daily, obviously, even sometimes 3 or 4 times throughout the day, and that you start seeing some rates in the mid to high fives.
right.
It's the first time we see them for the last 4 or 5 months. So it is soft. It is soft. I would call it. It is softening up.
Right.
Again, it changes, it varies every day. So today was kind of like a little up, but the last couple of weeks has been going down.
Yeah.
Uh, for the last 4 months, the rates have gone up there all the way to the 7% mark.
Right.
Is a very, very tough interest rate for most first-time home buyers. And it basically eliminates a lot of buyers from the pool, right? Because a lot of people
Yes.
can't really afford a house at 7% interest rate.
Right.
So now you know me, I'm a positive guy, so I always try to think about it
Right.
in positive. It actually works for the well qualified buyers, and even the first time home buyers that barely qualify. Why?
Yeah.
Because it eliminates a lot of people from the competition.
I
So
got you.
you and I remember, right? Back in the first quarter, even part of the second quarter of 2022, tons of multi-offer situations, right?
Right.
A lot of houses where they had two, three, four, sometimes even 6 and 7 offers, and you're like,
Yeah. Buyers were just getting super frustrated, and I mean,
yeah.
almost dropping
How do
out of
you? I mean,
competition.
how do you compete with that, man? I mean, how do you compete with
Yeah.
6, 7 other people? You basically have to give up a lot of things to try to get the
Especially
house.
when one walks in with a bag full of cash and sits down and says, "Hey, I want to buy this in 10 days," and
Yeah,
at that point they won. You know.
right. But think about the situation. Why was there a lot of cash in the market? One, there was a lot of investors.
Yeah.
Second, there were a lot of people moving. Tons
Right.
of people moving because they could work remotely. Well, guess what? That's not the case anymore. The people who wanted to move, they have moved. There's
Yeah.
still there's still a lot of things happening in that area, but not with the amount of cash that they had before last year.
Yeah.
So you don't see a lot of those situations again. You see now barely you get one, maybe two offers per house. So a house that has been sitting in the market, and if we have anybody selling a house right now, listen and please cover your ears. You don't want to hear that. But if you have to sell your house, you have to consider any offer, right? If you have to
Yeah.
sell your house, if you're in a situation where you can wait a couple months and see how it goes, you don't need the cash from the house, you can have that house sitting there for a couple more months, then fine, it doesn't affect you. But if you have to sell the house, you have to consider, even if you get only one offer, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is buyers have now the advantage. Buyers
Yeah.
can request, credits in some, and so the interest rates are a little softer. They're helping some of the buyers, There's not multi-offer scenarios anymore, or not as many as before. So all in all, I think this is a great opportunity for people who are in the market to buy a house. If they get pre-approved, go for it.
Absolutely. And, you know, I like that you brought up that we get to negotiate a seller's credit again. You know, the last 2 listings that Janelle and I have sold, they included $12,500 seller's credit to buy down the buyer's rate.
That's incredible. That's incredible that you negotiated that. I mean, unheard of in the last probably 5 years.
Yeah, we haven't been able to play with seller credits for a while. And from the buyer's side, that's like the most fun part of my job, is negotiating stuff like that and getting it written in contract and making sure that my buyers are protected on the negotiation. You know, I mean, they almost deserve it, right? Like, after what they've been through, being beat out by so many different cash investors, and you know, like you're talking about transplants from the Bay Area, from bigger cities, you know.
Yeah,
we're a smaller town here in Yuba City, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just such a relief being able to feel like I'm doing my job again, and being able to
help the buyers, to help
them. Yeah, exactly. To be their advocate on their behalf, you know.
Yeah, the kind of the local people who live there, who have lived there for a long time, and they're really wanting to go for that, to accomplish that dream of owning a home.
Yeah,
they see that dream kind of going away little by little, or at least becoming harder and harder over time. It's good to have that opportunity to actually help them out, right, and get them some credits and get them in a house. So yeah, it's a very satisfying kind of position. Now, I do have bad news. I don't know how long that's going to last. I think, you know, interestingly enough, the Fed is, as I said in our last live about 2 weeks ago, the Fed is determined to figure this out. They know they have printed too much money, and printed, like, quote unquote, like they don't actually print money anymore.
No, right.
Or everything is digital, right? So they've flooded the economy with tons of money, and not just this government, but the previous government too, and the previous government too. So it's both parties, right? As I've mentioned before. So the economy is flooded. They know that the only way to fight inflation is to keep at it, to keep increasing interest rates. So that's not going to stop. What has changed, though, this year, it seems like, is, you know, what we're looking at right now is what's going to happen with the Treasury, 10-year Treasury. What is going to happen to that return? What's going to happen to the job market, right? It seems to be strong. I hope it stays strong. But, you know, we'll see. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is there's other factors that affect mortgage rates that is not just what the Fed says in terms of increasing the rates. Yeah. And those other factors might keep the rates where they are right now.
Right.
Sales volume is going to be very important. If we continue at the current very low sales volume, there's really not much not much the mortgage industry can do to keep mortgages going. So I think that environment will dictate where we go from here. But, you know, we'll see if the rates stay low or continue to go lower than what they are right now. Is going to bring more people back to buy houses. And if the jobs are stable, brings more people back, there's going to be more competition sometime middle of the year. So we'll see. I'm not into predictions. I hate predictions.
I know. Same here.
Probably be wrong.
I mean,
what do you think?
When we look at all the evidence, I mean, every single year, you know, we see these ebbs and flows. And right now in January, I'm noticing a lot more buyer activity. You know, I mean, I've sent a number of people over to you in the last week or two, right? Yeah. And that has everything to do with the fact that people are starting to kind of like calm down from getting beat up and starting to heal, and they're like, okay, let's give it a shot, you know. And like you said, that's going to cause more competition, because if we have more people wanting to purchase houses and lower inventory, you know, but
Right.
it's a different kind of competition because they're, you know, they're all buyers with a loan attached to them. It's not you're trying to compete with
Yeah.
cash. That's what we were going through, 8 months ago. And that was just a failing system for anybody that
Yeah.
had like an FHA, USDA, those kind of loans.
Right.
It just made it impossible for them to get accepted,
Right.
And
Yeah.
now we're seeing, more FHA, more USDA, VA loans being accepted by
Yeah.
sellers. I mean,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know what's interesting is what I noticed is people that because you send me a couple customers that need to be looked at, and but it's the same with every realtor that is kind of going through that pool of buyers that
oh,
got discouraged in 2022 and 2021,
right.
did not make it happen. They couldn't figure it out, and they come with a little bit of PTSD,
They do.
if I may say so. They're very weary. They're worried. They don't jump into the conversation right away. They kind of push it off a little bit. But once you get them pre-approved, and once you actually do the work to make sure that they stand as a solid buyer,
Right.
ready to go, because they realize this is my chance and this is my window.
Yeah.
So I think I'm an eternal positive guy, optimist, I guess. So as much as we are in a very tough and very unique, volatile environment, I think things are gonna start panning out, and things are gonna start becoming a little bit better. But
I think so too.
Not without a lot of more work from realtors and mortgage advisors.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like I love that you touched on the fact that people have maybe a little PTSD from getting beat up for 2 years.
Yeah.
I've totally changed my conversation when I call people. Instead of being salesy and pushy and that guy that's calling them for the sales call that they don't want to be on.
Right.
I'm like, hey, this is Matt Moreno with Moreno Real Estate Team. I'm just reaching out to my base to talk to people and have that conversation. Do you have any questions about the market right now? Or, and just start them off soft, because they've been through a lot in the last couple of years, and I've noticed that coming at them with the approach of kind of being the educator and the advisor is a whole lot better of conversation. They want to keep me on the phone, and then the more they start asking questions, the more that we realize, okay, let's start moving forward. Let's see what we can do to get you pre-approved, to get you keys in your hand and into a home.
Yeah, that's a great comment. However, it's still, as you said, it's much work. It's much more work, right? It's when you have an environment where things are moving pretty fast and buyers have to compete. It's you have the luxury as a realtor or a mortgage advisor to pick who you would talk to, and you have the luxury of saying, "Listen, be that kind of salesy guy and say like, hey, listen, my time is precious too, right? Yeah. Your time is important. You're trying to buy. You're trying to figure it out." My time is precious too. I have 5 other people knocking on the door. But right now, I think it's a good thing that it forces loan officers and realtors to be an advisor, to be a true representative, a true advocate for the buyer. And it's a luxury we didn't have before. I guess the market pushes us to do that. But it also does something super interesting that we touched on in our last conversation, which is it weeds out the people who don't have the knowledge, who don't have the experience, who cannot play that role. So there's a lot of realtors out there that are not closing any transactions. Why? Because they don't know any better. They don't know how to be that advisor. Same thing with loan officers. There's tons of loan officers who are, like, unfortunately, the ones that give this position and this industry a bad name, that can close a deal to save their lives because they don't know how to be an advisor. So I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing for the industry to finally be in a situation where we have to almost, purge and clean up, like
thin the herd a little bit, right?
Yeah, the people who shouldn't be here. And I feel bad saying it in such a negative way, but it's true, right?
You know, and here's the deal, Rob. I mean, I come on and do these lives all the time, and I give all the knowledge that I can, right? Because if they're listening, it's time for them to listen, right? Like, obviously, we're all doing something right and closing deals and have business in the pipeline for a reason. If they do the same thing, they'll have the same results.
Yep.
You know, I mean, a little education goes a long way in this industry, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely, and you have to. There's just some, I always say this is one of the most convoluted decisions and transactions any human being can enter into, right? And
Yeah.
it takes a lot of moving parts, and it takes a lot of knowledge. So I don't see it any other way. You have to provide a good consumer or customer or buyer experience.
Yeah.
You have to be the educator. You have to teach them. You have to hold their hands. You have to walk with them through the process, because it's a very convoluted process. And again, one of the biggest decisions anybody makes in their lifetime.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that we caught up today. I know we were a little bit later than our original timeline. I had a customer on the line that I actually had to take extra time to educate. So I appreciate being patient with me. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for coming on, and we'll talk to you next time. All right.
All right. We'll do it next week again. Thanks.
All right.